This homework is to get us ready for a very important lesson coming up next class. It is mostly review from pre-calculus, stuff you should already know. There's also a little bit of calculus in here. So, given f of x and g of x, so every time it's going to give us two functions, f of x, g of x, f of x, g of x, write a new function, h of x, that's going to equal f of g of x. Let's remember what this means. F of g of x means you take g of x and plug it in for x into f of x, because f of x says, hey, whatever x is, that goes into f. Well, g of x is the new x, so g of x goes in for x. All right, also, write a new function j of x, which is g of f of x. Now we're plugging in f of x into g. And evaluate h of 0 and j of 1. So I'll do one example of this, I guess. Part A says we're going to write a new function that is h of x, which is supposed to be f of g of x. So f is e to the x, but it's not going to be e to the x, it's going to be e to the g of x. F of g of x is e to the sine of x. And what this function is this is a function where when you plug in a value for x, first it'll go into sine of x, first it'll go into g of x, and then what that answer is, that answer you'll do e to that power. Okay. B, j of x is going to equal g of f of x. So now we're plugging in f of x into x for g. So g of f of x is sine of e to the x. This means first you do e to the x, and then do sine of whatever that answer is. And C, it says to evaluate h of 0 and j of 1. H of 0 means we plug in 0 in for x, so it'll be e to the sine of 0. Sine of 0 is the first thing to do. Sine of 0 is 0, and so it's e to the 0, which is 1. So h of 0 equals 1. J of 1 means we plug in 1 into j of x, so we're plugging in 1 here. So it's going to be sine of e to the 1, and that is sine e to the 1 power is just e, so sine of e. Okay. I think that's all I'm going to do from this first part. This second part, there are three things we're going to do again. There's a function h of x in each one of these. So each of these starts with h of x. And what we need to do is, in part A, we need to name two functions f and g such that h of x is f of g of x. So we're basically splitting h of x into two functions that it's made of. And you need to know how to take the derivative of f of x and g of x. So it can't just be, the reason I put this is because you could have said, hey, like f of x is sine of e to the x, and g of x is x. Well, okay, so f of g of x would be this, but you don't know how to take the derivative of sine of e to the x, and so this would not be a correct solution. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to split it into the composite functions. B, we're going to take the derivative of those two composite functions. And C, we're going to do this weird computation. We're going to plug in g of x into f prime, and then we're going to multiply it by g prime of x. So let's look at how this looks. Here, we need two functions where it's f of g of x. Well, f is obviously sine of x, and g of x is obviously e to the x, because that way when you do f of g of x, e to the x gets plugged into x, and you get sine of e to the x. Okay. So now, the derivative of sine of x is cosine of x. We should definitely have these memorized by now. And g prime of x, the derivative of e to the x is e to the x. And now this last part, f prime of g of x. So we're going to be taking g of x and plugging it in to f of x, f prime of x. So g of x was e to the x, so it's going to be cosine, this is f prime of x, cosine, instead of x, I'm plugging in g of x. Cosine of e to the x times g prime of x is e to the x. Usually if there's like a cosine at the end, we'll put e to the x in front. It's fine to leave it like this. This isn't wrong, but you'll often see it written like this. This is the more clear way to write it. I'll do one more of these because I thought these were a little bit weird. H of x is cosine squared of x, and so let's see, a, f of x. What is the thing, what are the two functions? Well, the two functions are cosine of x and x squared. We need to find which one is f of g of x. So f of x is the one that's getting plugged in, or sorry, the one that is being plugged into. And so that's x squared. And g of x is cosine of x. And it's important that they come in this order. The other order would not be right, because it was looking for f of g of x. And when you do f of g of x gets plugged in for x. So this gets plugged into right there, and this will say cosine of x squared. I hope you know what this means from pre-calculus. This is cosine of x squared. That's what cosine squared of x means. If we had put these backwards, if we had put these the other way around, that would be cosine of x squared, which is a very different thing. This says first you square x. This says first you square x, and then you do cosine of that answer. This says first you do cosine of x, and then square that answer. I hope that was visible the whole time, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. B, we want to do the derivative. So f prime of x is 2x. G prime of x is the derivative cosine is negative sine of x. And C, here's the weird one. We're doing f prime of g of x. So g of x is getting plugged into x in f prime. So this will be 2 times cosine of x, so that's f prime of g of x, and then times g prime of x, so times negative sine of x. This can be simplified because we have two coefficients we can multiply together. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 cosine of x sine of x. So that's the simplified version, and that is that homework. Hopefully it goes well for you. A quick reminder, if you had to get help on this homework, you don't know this all the way. You need to go back later, maybe a few hours later, and think, okay, if I covered up my answers that I got help on, could I now do it myself? Because watching somebody do math is not the same as being a master at it yourself. And this is all stuff as you go through the year. Anytime you get help on something through a video or from asking a friend or from asking a teacher, you do need to make sure that you have it mastered all the way at the end of getting help.